Good afternoon. My name is Richard Weitz. I'm a senior fellow and director of the Center for Political Military Analysis here at the Hudson Institute. We've marked an interesting anniversary recently. The length of time of which U.S. troops have been in Afghanistan is now greater than the length of time that the Soviet military occupied Afghanistan during the 1980s. As we know, that Soviet effort was a failed effort to try and pacify Afghanistan, and the Soviets had to basically retreat across the border and left chaos in their wake. Critics of the Afghan war argue that we're making the same mistake, that there's no way that foreign occupation troops can even with some friendly government can basically pacify a country that is very inhospitable to what they see as invaders. But I would argue that there are several factors very different from the Soviet period that might suggest that the NATO-U.S. troops can do a better job. First, this perception of foreign invaders, the polling doesn't show that. The polls really do show general support for the presence of the U.S. And NATO troops. The most recent polls show Afghans would like them to leave soon. Sooner than the 2014 date that we specified, but it's not the way they were feeling about the Soviet occupation, and the Taliban insurgents are very unpopular. Second, there's just been a recent surge in the number of U.S. and NATO troops, and it's still a bit early to determine how effective this campaign will be. So I think people it's premature to consider the latest campaign a failure. Third, I think there's a fundamental difference in the international coalition that are involved. When the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, it really shook up their foreign policy and made the United States, NATO, China, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, really almost the entire international community of countries are either non-aligned or part of the Soviet bloc join in and try and support the Mujahideen insurgents. So the Soviets really had to deal with a massive resupply effort, giving them Stinger missiles and other weapons. It made it very difficult. In this case, we've actually got a strong coalition against the Taliban. We've got the United States, all the NATO allies, most of them have troops there, a lot of partner countries, Australia, Japan. The Chinese are somewhat, they're not troops, but they're still supporting the government there. Pakistan, it's a bit iffy. It's not clear. There's some support going from Pakistanis to the insurgents, but the Pakistan government is not supporting them as far as we can tell. So that's that. And then the last consideration might be that just the number of Taliban forces is much smaller on this occasion than what the insurgents that the Russians were fighting. And in fact, the most interesting factor is that the Russians themselves are becoming increasingly supportive of the NATO effort. Rather than feel resentful and hope the NATO would be defeated, which is what some of them obviously do feel, their government has now adopted a policy of trying to support the incumbent government, working with NATO to allow NATO forces to go through their territory onto Afghanistan. They have mixed motives in this, but on the whole, I still think it's premature to call the campaign a failure, and I would give the President and the Congress a few more months to see how the latest surge goes. Thank you.